would be needed to demonstrate an effort to protect historic resources and meet the needs of the applicant under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They provided three topics they wanted the applicant to resubmit, and more detailed description of these three things are in the staff report. One was additional information of the alternatives analysis, including all of the pre-identified alternatives that were presented to the applicant by the Historic Review Board and the City Commission at the last application. They provided consistent revised plans, as well as confirmation from the landscape architect that the proposed plantings would in the space is adequate, because there was the landscape plan and the site plan had different different metrics and sizes. And so as of this evening, no additional information has been submitted to staff. I provided an initial staff recommendation that the proposed application with a revised design of wood and metal for a full ADA ramp to the rear elevation continues to lack the needed evidence to show that the proposal provides the best option to balance the needs of the applicant and impact the historic district. Staff recommends denial of the GLUA 2231 and HR 2211. As the proposal does not demonstrate a concerted effort to protect historic resources. I have spoken with the applicant today, and he is aware that staff has recommended denial, and he is in a place where he will not be presenting additional information, and he understands that that most likely will constitute a denial of this application, and he is aware of that. And so I've been working with our Assistant City Attorney, Carrie Richtert, on a draft motion for the board. And I provided here in this in the presentation. Once I'm done sharing, will allow for public comments, any deliberations, and if the board wants to move forward and use the draft motion, I'll bring this back up. But I'll read this out. This is a potential draft motion this evening that provides findings, evidence, and criteria, and links all three of them together. So a potential draft motion could be: I move denial of GLUA 2231, HR 2211, resubmission of a full ADA ramp modifications of HR 2001 for the reasons set forth in staff's January 17th revised staff report. The HRB finds that the applicant failed to submit evidence sufficient to present an ADA ramp design that adequately protects the character and significance of the historic district. The critical evidence that the HRB identified as necessary to evaluate compliance with the applicable standards include the following: an alternate analysis with approximate cost estimates for all options, including one that requires some level of interior demolition to substantiate a finding that is infeasible. New left and rear elevations incorporating the various elements reviewed and approved as necessary to evaluate the overall composition with respect to the building's massing and style. New landscape plan showing proposed mitigation plantings and substantiating that plantings will be successful. And finally, without this evidence, the Historic Review Board was unable to find that the proposed modification will protect and enhance the historic district as necessary to comply with the applicable approval standards, included 1740-060F, subset 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. So I'm going to stop sharing. And what this means, if the board moves to deny this application, the applicant has a previous approval last year to build the smaller ADA ramps. They could come in with a building permit for that. They have yet to receive their temporary or final certificate of occupancy of the building, and they have outstanding work that they still need to do. That doesn't go away with the denial of this application. They need to resolve the porch pillars that were built incorrectly and either change the design or come back to the board at a future meeting. They have lighting that was not approved as part of the original approval on the side elevation, as well as just final conditions, and as well kind of an audit staff will be doing to ensure that what is being approved is what was submitted. The key thing for the Historic Review Board members and anybody in the neighborhood to understand is the city works on a two-stage process for occupancy. There is a temporary occupancy that is granted by the building official because they have met fire life safety needs. And so therefore someone could move into the building, but you do not get a full certificate of occupancy until you met all of the planning requirements, any land use requirements. And so those are all those outstanding. And an applicant does pay each month that they are in temporary CFO. So I do want to let the Historic Review Board and the neighbors know that there are kind of two separate things happening. And the temporary fire life safety CFO is really related to the building code and the building official. And that kind of can happen separately. So I'll be still working with the applicant to continue addressing these outstanding issues if the board moves to denial, and the applicant may choose to come in and build the smaller ADA ramp through a new building permit. So I'm available if anybody has any questions. The applicant is not available, has chosen not to come this evening, but we do have a neighbor here, Ms. Maudlin, and so she is available for public comment when that's open.
Anyone have any questions for staff? If not, we can move on to the public testimony portion. It looks like the applicant is not here. So there would be 5 minutes for representatives of a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization. 3 minutes for individuals, and 5 minutes for a rebuttal from the applicant, but they're not here. So it looks like Ms. Maudlin, is that correct, has 3 minutes to give her testimony.
I just want to say thank you very much for following through with this and keeping everybody on their toes and including all of us. I appreciate that we're continuing to want to make sure this is ADA accessible for senior or residents. I appreciate that also that we're really holding this to the historic community, because once we ignore part of it, it just the overall effect of the McLaughlin neighborhood. We appreciate looking historical as much as we can and maintaining it. So I appreciate all the effort that's been going on this and continue on. And I will continue to be here to support, because other buildings will come up in the future. And I want to maintain that we continue the same process. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. We will now move into board deliberations.
I think you need to close the public hearing.
Thank you. I knew there was something else. I was looking at my notes because we're sort of out of order. So yes, so I will close the public testimony and we will move into board deliberations. What are our initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts are they didn't come back and provide what we had specifically asked for at our last HRD meeting. So
I thought we were very clear.
Yeah, they wanted clarification. We got advice on what we needed to say, and yeah, I agree.
Yes.
We were very clear, yeah. So
I think we're probably prepared for a motion, are we not?
I would agree.
So a question for Ms. Richter, do I need to bring the slide back up and we read it, or can we reference the motion since I read it? What was your pleasure?
My
Dave is trying to get some.
Oh, sorry.
I guess, well, I do have some questions of this project, but I guess the question relative to where we're at in the hearing here now, just so I understand clearly, are in adopting essentially that statement of denial that we'll look at again. I would like to see it again. where does that leave the applicant as far as pursuing it further? Can he, at that point, then generate will he start a new application, bring in new evidence based on what this denial asked for, and then have the opportunity to pursue it in that fashion, or where does that leave them?
So they could appeal this decision to the city commission. Your decision, that's why it's important that we have findings as set forth in Christina's slide and then in Christina's staff report, so that the city commission has a clear understanding of what you felt was necessary. So the applicant could appeal to the city commission and argue that perhaps the HRB was wrong, or the applicant could file a new application, including the items that the HRB identified, and start the process again.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's concerning to me because, you know, that there is a path forward for the applicant in view of the fact that it's been troublesome and no doubt frustrating the applicant and frustrating the board and the staff all the way around. But if there is still a path forward, you know, if in bringing in the proper documentation to justify it, I had, you know, just a couple distinct questions in visiting the site and looking at the materials. And maybe some of this has been answered and I missed it, but I have followed several of the meetings and also gone through all of the packet material as well as some of the previously submitted information. And I think the board was right on track with a couple things. Number one, asking for, you might say, the open design that does separate that as an accessory accommodation, access accommodation from the structure. I think that was a real good call. You know, but what in asking for more complete plans, I think a key part of that, as I look at it, nothing on the plans that has been shown so far that I can find shows where that ramp will terminate at the lower end. If he plans to run right into the sidewalk has considerably too much slope. It would have to be reconfigured. One view showed it turning and to run parallel to the porch and run back to the front walk, but the steps are in the way. So something would have to be reconfigured in any event in order to make it meet ADA code. If it's going to turn and run back parallel to the porch, the sidewalk slope is considerably more than wheelchair ramp slope. So that means that landing where it turns will sit up, you know, noticeably higher than the sidewalk and would need a rail system. That would be a very significant visual component in the front of the building. So in other words, that I think falls very much within the HRB consideration, what that looks like in the front end. If it is just going to hit the sidewalk, it would be much more discreet, but of course would need this sidewalk to be redone. My other question basically is related to usage, and I've heard some questions thrown about this, but no real answers, and that is if the building is going to be utilized as a single-family residence or if the building is going to be used as some type of a care facility. Because in my view, balancing the accommodation and access would be significantly different. If it's a single-family residence as opposed to if it's a care facility of some sort. If it's a care facility of some sort, then it would weight the accommodation because that would be an ongoing use. A single family residence, it would be only a temporary use. And so that would, in my mind, significantly change the weighting in that balance. So has there been any discussion of those aspects?
Chairmember Ferry, I think I can answer both of those questions. We might need to open the record back up to allow public comment, but I'll take both of them. I'll take the second one first. The applicant has proposed a live-work dwelling, which has a downstairs office. That was commercially built, commercially rated, and then the second and third floor is one single-family unit. They have not indicated that this will be a residential care home, which is 5 residents or less. This is a commercial zone, so it could actually be a residential facility, which is I think 6 to 15, but neither of those have been reviewed. The applicant has proposed a single family home as the live part and the work part as an office. So that is where the board is reviewing this. Okay. If the uses change at a later date, we will address that at that time.
Okay. So in other words, if the usage changed, then at that point, they could make an application for a wheelchair ramp.
Yeah, they would also need to work with our building official to see what building codes may be applicable.
Yeah.
So the first part actually is where the board may not be done seeing this ADA ramp. One of the initial conditions of approval of the first round of the ADA ramp, because initially board member Green, this was proposed to be at grade. So there was no ramp, and just the cross sloping and the construction put it about 4 to 5 feet above grade. And so it needed a ramp.
Right.
And so the original application proposed a ramp, though it did indicate that it needed to be designed that no railings could be in front of the porch. And so with the L-shaped, if they have to have metal railings or some type of railings in front of the porch in the L shape, that is not allowed per the previous approval, and they would have to come back to the board for a discussion in a design. Yeah. So there's some pretty tight requirements in the last version. I also need to check to see if they are allowed in the previous version to have a porch cover, which the board did approve in concept. In general, like a side porch, but I'd have to take a look if that was allowed. So there may be things that the applicant may have to come back for small tweaks to if they can't meet the previous approval for the side entry. But I think that's what they're looking at doing at the moment to see if that's something they can build.
Okay.
So I probably open it up to public comment if wants to respond to any of that.
Yeah, do we have any public comment on what was just mentioned? If not, we'll close the record again and continue with board deliberations.
I'd like to ask a question of Christina. So again, are you telling me that the plan that is approved for the singular side entrance is the L shape where they enter kind of parallel or close to the front porch, and then go down and around, and is that considered wheelchair accessible?
Right. So their burden is to turn this into a building permit review, and if they can't build what the board required, which is your ADA ramp railing should start behind the porch, which was the condition. If they can't get the building permit to do the thing the board conditioned, they'll have to come back for a revision because I can't sign off on that building permit.
Okay. Well, if we don't hear anything else, I would like to move that. Could you bring up that conditions of approval?
Yes.
I think the question at hand was, does the motion need to include all of the items that Christina read? And I think the answer is no. I think the motion can be the first sentence and then the materials on staff PowerPoint slide number 4.
Okay. I move the denial of GULA 22-00031 colon HR 22-00011 resubmission for a full ADA ramp modification of HR 22 or 20-0001 for the reasons set forth in the January 17th revised report on slide 4 as submitted.
I'll second.
Second.
All right. Board Member Green. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, aye.
Board Member Stobie.
Aye.
Board Member Edgar.
Aye.
Board Member Powell.
Aye.
Chair Ferry.
Aye.
All right. Then.
So I think that closes the land use portion of our meeting. But I do think we have a communication, which is our 2022 HRB accomplishments.
Yes, and I used the same material that Kelly Reed, the previous preservation planner, used, and I am going to open up the staff report real quickly and share my screen. So now that we do have a chair, I will work with Chair Ferry. This will be the Historic Review Board usually presents the City Commission every year on the work that they've done, and it's usually the first. It's like a 5-minute presentation at the beginning of a City Commission meeting, and that meeting. I wonder if Aquila Herdravich has it on hand because I wrote it down, but it's not on my notes right now. But it is, I believe, one of our February meetings, so I will work with you. And the idea is to share this staff report, and then what I'd like to do, and I don't have, is if the board wants to share anything else that they felt was important. And granted, we have three out of the 5 that worked last year, but if there's something else you think is missing or more qualitative that you want to pass on for Sabrina to share to the City Commission, that would be helpful in our discussion. So I don't know.
And that date is February 15th.
February 15th. All right. Do I read this or?
Sure. I'm having real trouble with my screen share tonight, so I may send it over to you to have discussions, and then really just provide any additional direction the board wants to give you. Will be helpful, but for the most part, what you see tonight is what I'll attach to the City Commission agenda.
So it looks like we, under our preservation program, we awarded 5 local preservation grants for window and siding repair. We awarded the 2022 Ruth McBride Powers Preservation Award to Haley and Ike McGinnis for their work on their house at 610 JQ Adams Street in the McLaughlin Conservation District. We mailed out quarterly historic property owners' welcome packets to new owners, and we held work sessions to create draft design guidelines for middle housing, and we presented to the Kanema and McLaughlin neighborhood associations. And we will present to the City Commission at our work session in 2023. We also reviewed 5 applications for new construction or modifications in new construction. We reviewed 3 applications for alterations to the historic properties, reviewed 3 applications for demolition, and reviewed 2 applications for delisting and or reduction in size of landmark and provided design advice for 1 project. So overall, I think a good year, right? Good stuff. Yeah.
It was a good year. I hope 2023 we receive more requests for design advice before applications are actually submitted. So
that would be nice. Yeah. And hopefully we can give out more grants because I always like doing that. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys would like to present to the City Commission? You can think of.
Not necessarily part of the presentation, but just a question. The Ruth McBride Award, is that something that we need to be looking towards? Is that something we need to be doing some homework for upcoming for this year?
Yeah, we get to nominate.
Staff will do that. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that Christina and before Kelly would always provide us with updates and do the homework for us, really.
Good. We'll expect that again.
But Nathan's been watching the meetings for quite a while. I'm sure you've done some of your homework. You got your notes there, I'm sure. So,
for the Ruth Powers Award, the board generally forwards the name kind of in March and April, and then it's awarded in May. And our mayor presents it at a city commission meeting. So it can be a person that has shown, as a passionate preservationist over the years in the neighborhoods. It could be a project that the board reviewed. It could be just a homeowner who's doing an amazing job with their house, and that's presented. And we have all the awardees. We have information since the beginning on our website. You can go find the Ruth Powers Award and see all the past awardees. So keep Board Member Green, start thinking. And there'll be nominations coming up this spring.
I think it's great. Let's move ahead.
Sounds good.
All right. So I will, Board Chair Ferry, I will coordinate with you, but I will run the commission report with our city recorder, and I'll just let you know when to attend. But what you'll show up at the meeting, the mayor will bring you to the testimony stand, and you'll kind of have 5 minutes just to describe what the board does and what we've been working on, and you can even read out portions of that and provide a little context to the city commission on how hardworking we've been this year.
And then this is an in-person meeting?
Yes, at the Robert Lipke Public Safety Building, the new police station across from our office.
And I was going to ask, are we going to go back to in-person meetings, or are we going to remain virtual? Do you know?
I'm going to pass that to our community development director, Quilla Hurd-Ravitch. I know she's working on it.
Oh, okay.
But we don't have a timeline right now.
So I think it was the beginning of last year. You all probably remember better. We weren't meeting in person, and we were experiencing just incredible sound issues, acoustic issues in that room. And since then, our city recorder, Jacob Wiley, has been working pretty tirelessly to fix that and make some modifications. And so at a certain point, the board actually decided that you all would like to remain virtual until that room had some better acoustic accommodations. So I think I'd leave it up to you if you wanted to experiment with it, try it in person and see how it works. There have been quite a few updates that I think made it better. Paul, you might have some thoughts on that. I know you've attended some planning commission meetings. I'm not sure how you feel.
I applaud any effort to make it better because it's been awful. It's really has been, I think it's been detrimental to public involvement, and being in the up on the diocese or sitting out there is difficult to hear adequately, and I think it's not been good enough. Let's say we need to make improvements.
So just for my own clarification, so even the most recent planning commission meetings that you've attended, you've still felt that it was better, but not.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. That's a good way to say it. It's better, but not up to snuff yet. I think it's detrimental to the public involvement, and I think we need to do better. That's all.
Okay.
I had a quick question just on that. I've only been in that building for a few meetings, but I've definitely had difficulty, and I do have hearing challenges, but I've got the best hearing aids I can get. But is it the actual acoustics of the building that they're working on, or is it just electronic systems that seem to be the problem?
The acoustics are really difficult.
That's what I thought, because just a little bit of reverb, and there's reverb in the building, is enough to start compromising speech comprehension, and I.
Yes, it's all of the above, and the recorder offered me to give me hearing things to be part of the meeting, but just being up on the diocese and trying to hear like that, and then my hearing aids I've got are still just difficult, and I don't think it's adequate at this time. But I would love to see us back in person as soon as we can.
Well, I have a question. Is there another venue that would be more beneficial, even if it's a city hall or something along those lines?
I would have to ask, find out how the rooms are being programmed.
Okay.
I agree with that, because the old city hall meeting room there had no problems.
So what I've heard is that there were problems, but now in comparison to the new chambers, they seem as bad. But I agree. I haven't heard as many.
I think I would concur to that, because I had some struggles at the city hall as well when I've been in the chair.
But I will pass all this on to the recorder, and it won't be new news, but he's continuing to work on it.
Thank you.
And Dave, to your question, the modifications have been to the systems, the sound delivery systems, and I think the next step that he's going to look into is like actual architectural acoustic modifications. So that's trying to work through all the bugs. So
yeah,
Dave, you're, as a contractor and somebody that's been around this, if you know anybody or know of any technologies or things that could be done between some of these glow lamps or something that could help deaden or this, boy, you're.
Well, obviously they would need to enlist, acoustic design technicians, but I mean, such things as hanging acoustic baffles are pretty typical, that just soak up some of that reverb. So you see that fairly frequently, just like acoustic baffles that are hung from the ceiling. But there's a variety of things. They would just have to evaluate the building and take acoustic measurements and so forth.
Well, I think, should we conclude our meeting?
I have a little communications, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I would like to make a question too. I had sent a brief email to Christina. Kanima has very limited asphalt sections in where the roads, the right-of-ways are 60 feet wide, and there's a lot of right-of-way that is unimproved all through it. The question really comes along, like Asplund was doing clearing of trees along, limbs and trees along power lines, and then just letting all of this stuff drop down. And so I asked a question of the Public Works Director about
oh no. Sorry, we lost Paul.
Yeah,
I think what our Paul was asking was, we do allow pruning of trees in the right of way, and while Kenema is a National Register district and the sylvan nature of Kenema is part of the identity, when it gets down to individual tree maintenance, it's a little bit of a different part of the code, and there's always been a tension point with trees in Kenema. So I can work with Paul to kind of see what is really a public works and right of way and tree permitting, pruning, and when it would actually be something that would touch a National Register Historic District. But it's gray because just because you're National Register District doesn't mean the HRB can approve any tree removal, any one tree removal. Paul, are you back? So I answered a little bit of your comments. I read your email, and I think we'll have to work with you because there's always a tension related to an individual tree in the Kenema National Register District and the context of Kenema as a sylvan, forested area. And so the board doesn't necessarily have review authority on any one individual tree, but maybe how Public Works prunes or policies related to pruning of trees, that may be something where the board can get involved.
I'm looking at they just got through finishing South End Road, not finishing. We can drive on it now. But all along, when you come in on Fifth Avenue off of South End, it's just blackberries and garbage and stuff all the way up to South End Road and through that area. And we have a sign that says this is a National Register Historic District as you enter in there. And the appearance of all of this is just detrimental. And I find it's all, a lot of that area through there is just all bordered with public property, and including old Kenema Park. And I wish that we had made it look more presentable. I know that where I have my property coming down, I've been trying to clean it all up and trying to maintain it and make it good. Mm-hmm. But I think we should be doing something better than we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Another good ally, maybe as it relates to old Kenema Park and maybe some city-owned open space, is the Friends of Parks have been doing a lot of Ivy pulling and kind of group activities and education. And that may be a good avenue. There might be other partners on, especially that entryway and removing invasive species.
Yeah, they're just ugly and simply. And I don't. I find that it's almost detrimental to the values of our properties. I wish we could be some way that it could do something. And as a historic district, I just felt like that we're not putting our best foot forward. That's all from me.
The communication I have relates that you'll have 2 new applications next month, an addition to an historic resource, a new solar application, and the continuation of this solar application. So we have a pretty full evening next month. The board does actually need to move forward on a formal recommendation for the draft design guidelines for middle housing. The last time you looked at it was in the fall. So I've tentatively scheduled that for the March meeting, either through a work session and then at the hearing to do the formal recommendation. And then we would have create a joint work session with the city commission to get them, as more and more properties are interested in middle housing, I think moving sooner than later is a good idea. Doesn't mean that the board can't review middle housing with our existing design guidelines, but these extra 2 or 3 pages, I think, do provide clearer direction to applicants. So I think it's helpful. So you'll see that most likely in the March meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. So I will close the January 24th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Review Board. And we'll